Hello, Brent Ritchie again. I want to talk a little bit about literal equations. It doesn't just roll off the tongue. And I'll just talk briefly about what they are, where we often see them, and then in a separate video, we'll work some of those out. Literal equations. Let's see. Let's see if I can write a little better than that. There we go. Literal equations. They're comprised make that look a little nicer. There we go. Comprised mostly of letters. We're used to in algebra mostly of letters. In algebra, we're used to equations that are mostly numbers that usually have one or two variables in it, and then numbers everywhere else all over the place. Literal equations are comprised mostly of letters, and where we often see those is with formulas. Area of a triangle, 1/2 base times height. So you can see we have an A, a B, an H there, and only one number. That's a literal equation. Oftentimes what we find ourselves in need of is solving these literal equations for one of the variables. This one is, of course, already solved for A. So if I have B and H, and I'm looking for A, things are easy enough. I can plug B and H in there and I can solve for A. But suppose I have A and H and I want B. So sometimes it behooves us to rewrite these equations in terms of one of these other variables and solve it for that. So we're just really using the same rules of algebra to rewrite equations for our convenience, in terms of other variables. Fortunately, all the same rules of algebra apply. We can do things when in order to rearrange this equation and solve it for one of the other variables, we can do things like add the same number or the same letter to both sides of an equation, if that's going to work for us. We can subtract things from both sides. Subtract from both sides. So just like you do with regular equations that are full of numbers, and you add and subtract numbers from both sides or variables from both sides, that applies. All those same rules apply. What else can we do? We can multiply. Sometimes we like to multiply both sides by some number or some letter. And we can divide both sides. And now that'll get you through. You can actually go further than that. You can do radicals and exponents on both sides, divide both sides. You could probably venture into trigonometry and stuff like that, but we're in algebra, so we keep things straightforward and pretty useful. So just remember that when solving literal equations for one of the other variables, all the same rules of algebra apply. So anything you can do to a regular equation, that looks like 5x plus 7 equals 10. Anything you can do to that equation, you can do to this equation over here. And what you do depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And we'll follow this up with a couple of videos solving some of these formulas for other variables.